Hey, y'all, come here. Come near. I want to tell you a story. For my students, I want you to find a super secret word that I say at least 3 times in this story. You find where it is, note the time, and put it in the comments below. And that secret word this time is girl. G-I-R-L. And then I'm going to change 2 things. Something in the screen here that you're seeing will change. 2 things. You find it and leave the comments. And parents and teachers and families, you can tell me how you think it's going too, so I can make things better. Thanks so much. This story is going to be about the river. The story of the tiny, big, slow, lazy, swift, black water, mysterious, and quiet and loud, wonderful, happy river. So we had more river, woods, fields, beaches, and lots more freedom. When we were little down on the river, my brother was told, you can't go out of that tree until you're 7 years old, which meant he was 6 and I was 10. We were down on the river the whole day. But he did go out of the big tree, and my parents caught him. And guess who got in trouble? Both of us. But that just says that even when we were 6 and 10 years old, we had so much freedom. In my Florida, things centered around a few things. There was lots of woods and the river to play on, but also we had school. That was one of our main things because we all went to school from 1st through 12th grade in one school. No kindergarten, but from 1st to 12th grade, the little kids were on one side of the street, big kids on the other side, and we shared the lunchroom and things like that. And there was sports, one sport at a time. There was football in the fall, then basketball in the winter, then baseball in the spring, and summer we swam all the time. We had church. There was only just a very few churches, and we just all saw each other all the time. There was the drive-in for food, which is where I worked. It was a curb hop. You know what a curb hop is? It's where I would go out to the cars, they would park, and I'd take their order and go in and get it and bring it out and put a tray on their window, and they'd eat off of that. And then there was the drive-in movie. I'm sure you know what it is, and if you ever get to go to one, go to it. But there'd be 3 movies in a row on Saturday night. Then it was like that a lot of places in small town America. But our place, I think, was especially special because we were really close because we had this one school. We had one school bus from my little community. We celebrated every holiday together. We'd all cook out a big hog on a bonfire, and we'd dance. We'd do snake dances, the bunny hop, all night long till the next morning. And then there was hayride every Saturday night, at least one hayride every Saturday night. And us girls would often sit in the front end loader. We didn't pull it with horses, we pulled it with the tractor, and the tractor had this big bucket on the front. And lots of times the girls would sit in the front end loader and Daddy would lift it up high. It was so fun riding through the night in that. We very rarely saw a stranger, and most of you can't say that. But most of this life centered around when we weren't in school or church. The rest of it was spent down on the river. This river was a blackwater river. And it's like tea color. You've probably seen that. There's a rope swing, a giant, tall cypress tree. And somebody had climbed up to the top and put a rope in it. So it would swing around and around and around, and then you'd drop into the water. It had a trolley that went from one side to the other that you'd hold on to and go all the way across. Or you could take your friend and go halfway across, and one of you could drop and the other one would take it across. We had inner tubes. You know these big inner tubes that you float on? Those come from inside tractor tire. And so it was just a giant ones. We had lots of them. Sometimes we'd get inside of them and our friends would roll us down the boat ramp into the water, or we'd take our bikes and jump off the ledge into the water. Just anything we could think of. And then there was a big log that was there for just years, bigger around than 3 of us could put our arms around probably. And there was a wooden boat that someone had put there. We never knew who. And it was right on a curve in the river. And so it would double back on itself, and we could take the boat or the inner tubes and float around the edge, get out, run across the land, jump in up at the top again, and come around again and just go around and around and around. Well, sometimes it was very dark and very fast, and sometimes in the summer it got almost clear and you could walk across it. But this boat was just so fun, and the logs were so fun. It was just anything we could do to entertain us. And in the middle of all of it, at the base of the giant cypress tree, was a great big cold water spring. And it was fun to dive down into it, but also we'd bring lunch or watermelon or Pepsis or whatever and put them down in the spring. And one summer we found, when we started swimming again after the winter, we found Pepsis and you know those Grape-alicious or something, bubble gum that's really big and makes big bubble, down in the spring from the following year. But they were still good. So when we were little, we'd sit down there and we'd talk about, you know, how to catch a catfish or how fast our horse was. And when later us girls would sit down there and we'd talk about how to shave our legs or how to lace our fingers together the way the big kids held hands. How do you get your fingers to do that, we wondered. Or later our first kiss, and then which college we'd go to. And pretty much it was us, the same kids, that we all went to school together. A lot of us were kin, and most of us were about the same age, or a year younger or a year older. But one little girl was named Jenny, and she was somebody's little sister. And she just tagged along with us all the time. She was our shadow everywhere we went. She wasn't really old enough, but she did everything she could to keep up. So one night I remember we were all sitting down there, Rosa and Teresa and Charlotte and all of my friends, and of course, Jenny, sitting down at night at the river. And there was a light far away, so we had a little bit of light, and the sand bottom, this was when the summer when it was low, and we could see the sand bottom and this rock that was there. And as we were talking, none of us noticed. We didn't know what that rock was, and we knew every pebble in this river. And so then we thought we'd all go in, and we jumped up and we dove in, and as we dove over, the rock uncoiled and swam away. The whole time it had been a snake sitting there, and we'd been sitting beside it. But I guess it's one of those situations where he was more afraid of us than we were of him, because we didn't stop swimming. Then I had another friend. Her name was Sheila, and she was a goat. She was a little white goat, and she was the sweetest thing. She went everywhere with me. She slept with me. She stayed inside. She rode my horse, because oftentimes we'd ride our horse down to the river. You might have listened to another story I had called Molly and the Hurricane Baby. So Sheila could get up on Molly's back and ride down with me. But Sheila kept getting dirty and dirty and dirty, and my mama didn't like it. So she said, "You've got to do something about that goat." So we got this old-timey medicine called gentian violet, and we would dye her purple. Just every little bit when it started to grow out, we would just dye her purple again. So it was Sheila the purple goat, and Molly and I, and we rode down to the river, and we were just hanging out, and a friend came over. And we got in the boat, because it took 2 or 3 of us to be able to take the boat around the corner, drag it over the land, and put it in up top, and come back down and do it again. So finally, when 3 kids got there, we started taking the boat around and around. Another friend came, and another friend came, and another friend came, till we had 12 kids and Sheila the purple goat in the boat. And it was getting pretty full and riding pretty low. And then our other friend came down, named Jimmy, and he had a collie dog. So Jimmy got in the back with the collie dog, and now there was 13 kids, a purple goat, and a collie dog. Well, partway around the curve, the collie realizes Sheila's in there, and that Sheila's not another kid, she's a goat. So the collie dog takes off for Sheila, and Sheila just bleated and jumped out into the open air over the water, afraid of the collie. And when she did, pushed down on the edge of the boat, and the whole boat flipped over, and 13 kids, a purple goat, and a collie dog were in the river. But it was okay. It was summer, and it was hot, and we had a good time anyway. Then the big log that floated in there we used for rolling logs. Have you ever done that? You get on it and you just get it going one way, and then you can stop it and push hard with your feet and get it going the other way. But its fun is everybody lines up on it and you try to see who can stay on longest. Well, there was this bully boy in our neighborhood. Now he's a wonderful man, a wonderful father, wonderful husband, but at the time he was a bully boy. It's true, Donnie. It's true. So we all tried to avoid him. This is Jimmy's big brother. We tried to avoid him, but sometimes you just couldn't, and he just aggravated us so much because he was a bully. So this one time, it was during one of our big celebrations, and hundreds of people were there, and it had come down to Donnie and me left on the log. We rolled it one way, we rolled it the other way, we stopped, we went fast, we went slow, trying to make sure the other one fell off, and finally, Donnie, giant Donnie, who had bullied all of us, fell, kersplash, into the river, and I won. It was just one of those things that you remember forever. One time I got really afraid. Most times it was just fun. And we knew if anything really bad happened, there was lots of adults around, maybe not our parents, but somebody's parents could help us. But usually it was just fine. But once I got afraid because the water was black and I was swimming under an inner tube. And I had fallen off and I was trying to swim back to the top, but I guess I was just swimming around the inner tube underneath it, trying to find my way out, trying and pushing and running out of air until I was really afraid. And I thought, oh no, I'm going to die and no one will know where I am. And finally, I popped up in the middle of that inner tube and nobody had even realized I was missing, and I was trying to tell everybody I could have died down there. But it was just fun and nobody realized I was gone, so we just went right on playing. But sometimes a little bit of scary things happen and you'll figure out how to deal with it. So this one time, the scariest thing happened that ever happened to us. We were swinging around the tree where you grab hold of the rope and you go around and around and around and you drop it. And then somebody else picks it up and brings it up to the ledge and swing round and round and round and drop. And across the river, on the other side, where the beach was on the other side, also where the story happens about the Black Panther, you might have heard me tell. Well, there was a big old live oak that came up and went out over the river. And it was the funnest thing to swim across, climb up it, work our way out on the limb, and jump into the river. That was where John was when he wasn't supposed to be doing it because he wasn't 7 yet and we both got caught. Well, that's where it was. We were going up, doing it. The tree looked like it was blooming. Kids this day. Kids everywhere. It was a bright, sunny day, no wind at all, and then right out of nothing, there was this groan and crack, and the whole tree fell into the river. A giant live oak tree just fell into the river, and kids were everywhere. And so everybody, parents came running, kids started calling for their brothers and their sisters and their friend calling Jenny and Rosa and Charlotte, and everybody just calling and calling. And so Rosa was calling her little brother, Ralphie, and no answer. And we ran around, we found Jenny because she was always following us like always. We found her, that was good, found my little brothers, but Ralph wasn't answering. And everybody was calling, Ralph, Ralph. And there wasn't 911 then, there was no one anywhere near. And so parents and big kids had started to dive into the branches, which wasn't really safe yet. Started diving into the branches, calling and calling for him, Ralph, Ralph, thinking he was caught in the branches under the water. And after what seemed like a terribly, terrible long time, here comes Ralph walking up the river bank. He had gone around the curve. He said he just, when he felt it going, he just threw himself as far as he could out into the water, held his breath, and went as deep as he could and swam and swam and swam and swam as long as he could around the curve. And he popped up way around the curve and had to walk back, and then he heard everybody calling. But that was a day when that was really scary, but it ended pretty well. And that's kind of like Molly and the Hurricane Baby, another story you might have watched, where for a while there we were pretty worried, but it worked out. And this last memory about being down at the river, also pretty scary. Jenny, our little shadow, who went everywhere with us, had not learned to swim yet. She was several years younger, and she used one of those bubbles that you put around your middle, not the arm swimming kind of thing, but but a bubble. And it was red and it went around her tummy, belted on. And she just wore it all day long. From the time she got up in the morning till she went to bed at night, she had it on because she wanted to be our little shadow. And her mama had said she couldn't go anywhere unless she keep that bubble on because she couldn't swim yet. So she had decided she wanted to go out of that tree. And she had been told no. Just like my brother had been told you can't go out till you're 7 out of the big tree, she wanted to go on the swing. And she'd been told, no, Jenny, not until you've learned to swim. So she hadn't learned to swim. And she decided she was going off that tree anyway. So, in the middle of the night, she got up, snuck out, put her bubble on, thank goodness, her little red bubble. And in the dark, before the sun was even up, she walked and she got down to the river where there was no one there, of course. And she climbed across where you had to go across a little water, and above the moccasin that lived in the tree, up to a little foothold, and stretched as tall as she could and grabbed that rope and got it back up on the ledge and ran as fast as her little legs would go. And she went around the tree, around the tree, around the tree. And finally she realized at some point she was too afraid to drop. She couldn't drop, but what would she do? She splatted into the tree, knocked herself unconscious, and fell into the river. She floated down around the curve, and thank the heavens, Mr. Campbell had gotten up early and decided to go fishing. And he had dug up some fishing worms from his backyard, and he was sitting with his cane pole down on the river around the curve. He was just fishing away, had an ice bucket and catching some fish, had a stringer of fish already in, and he looked and he saw this little thing floating down the river, and he thought, what is that? And he watched as it got closer and closer. When it got right down to him, he reached down to pick it up, and there was Jenny attached to the bubble. And he saved her life. And she says to this day, even as a grown woman, she said that he saved her life. So there was some scary things, but mostly we all just figured it out and got parents to help us if we had to, and had a wonderful, wonderful childhood down on the river. So that's my story for today about our life down on the river. Please subscribe. You'll get notices when new ones go up. There's some there already, and there'll be some more coming about life in Olde Florida. Thank you. Bye, y'all.